Hello and welcome to Eddie V Live. We are at Monday of the octave of Easter. Hope everyone had a blessed Easter. Um, Over here at the studio, it was really delightful. We hit the Easter Vigil Mass. I think I'm like flushing a little bit, Asian flush, maybe not. Um, but we had a little bit of Easter Vigil Mass, which was 5 hours because I think over 100 people were coming into the church or receiving various sacraments, which was awesome, which was a blessing. But that's takes a little bit to get through all those people. But that was amazing. And then we went to the sunrise mass at 5:30, which was also beautiful. Just had a beautiful Easter. Hope you did as well yesterday. So we're in the octave now. Obviously, hopefully if you're Catholic, you know we celebrate Easter for 8 days, and then the season goes on for 50 days. So we're still celebrating. My my family was joking we should go back to Lent. We're just like overeating, um, eating all this bad stuff, not getting any sleep. It's been fun, but we're like, oh, we felt so much better in Lent. Fasting, eating healthy. But no, it's been good. It's kind of funny how that works. You missed the Lent days. Yeah, I hope everyone's Lent went well. Hope everyone's Triduum Easter was amazing. Today, coming back, I had a lot of different things I want to talk about, but I do want to just touch base on what's happening in the world currently. I don't know if I have strong opinions about it, but I just wanted to talk about it very quickly. First, we have the Iran war. It's still going on. It's been over a month now. So again, shout out to Nick Fuentes over at America First. If you don't watch him, I recommend it. He can be, he's a very has a very colorful language, but the man is spot on, and that's for sure. And he is Catholic, and he does talk about it, which is awesome. But he called this, and he called it this would eventually spill over into something big like this. And tomorrow we have, Trump's been doing all this deadline stuff for a long time. So if you follow at all, Trump always is putting deadlines on everything. He never seems to follow through on them, or he uses them to his advantage. But he has a deadline for tomorrow, which would be Tuesday of the octave of Easter 2026. And he announced it on Easter. I know a lot of people are upset about that. That he will, according to him, bomb civilian infrastructure in Iran if Iran and the US, and I'm assuming Israel and the other Middle Eastern countries, do not come to some sort of ceasefire or agreement. And that's pretty intense, pretty major. Obviously, civilian infrastructure, civilian lives have kind of been taken very casually. You could argue, this has been since World War II, but it's still something of a taboo in terms of war, and there's always outrage. The Gaza thing is a big example of that. Even though no one really did anything about it in terms of nations or military power, there was a huge outrage among peoples, which I think is a good sign of because we're post almost feels like religion at this point, but it feels like a good sign of religious outrage, moral outrage that is still on the consciences of people. It's like you should not kill civilians, you should not harm civilians in war. And Trump is just making this blatant threat basically against the civilians of Iran. Obviously, it will affect the military as well. But when you're and this is happening in the Russian Ukraine war, I don't want to, forget about that war, but this is an explicit threat that if the military of Iran, the regime of Iran does not make some sort of agreement or deal, the civilian population is going to suffer greatly. I don't know how, God willing, it won't happen, but if it does happen, I don't know how bad it's going to be. But no electricity, no water, that could get really ugly really quick. So I do encourage everyone, if you watch this tonight, but in the future, even depending on what happens, to be praying for the Iranian people. Pray for the country, pray for the Middle East, pray for our own country, pray for the United States, that we would make sacrifices in our own lives to and be converted to change the position of our country because it seems maybe kind of dramatic and political at this point, but it does seem like a very significant move by the leader of our country to be doing this kind of thing. And I'm not, people misunderstand, but like, other leaders have done this throughout history. And it's like, I understand. And it's not like the first time people will attack a civilian population in war, for specific purposes. But it just seems very focused, very concentrated at this point. And it's a specific threat. So we'll see what happens, but please be praying, sacrificing for those people. And another thing is, I know Iran is not a Christian country, but that does not mean we should not fast and pray for them. There's a lot of regular people, living their lives in and out, trying to do the best they can in Iran. I'm sure, obviously, I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure there are. Um, so I think it's important that we pray for them and sacrifice for them. So yeah, tomorrow is the deadline. He might change it. He might totally be bluffing on this, which in this case would actually be a relief. But we'll see what happens because it's just been up in the air. It's been so up in the air up to this point. But anyway, that's the Iran war. So I wanted to move to a different topic, but the Artemis II, the NASA launch that will go around the moon and come back. Really interesting. I know that I joke about this in real life a lot about how did the US really go to the moon and things like that. And I'm legitimately curious. Did we go? Did we not go? Um, I think we went to the moon as of now, but I do like to give people a hard time about it. But whether we did or we didn't, I assume this mission is real. I assume it is happening, and it is very cool. I believe a couple hours ago they just went to the backside of the moon, and it's just maybe pitch black for them. I'm not sure where they are, but just thinking about those guys in that guy, I think it's three guys and a girl. those people behind the moon, just insane, just intense. Um, yeah, just the places that humanity has gone thus far. You think of the explorers exploring the new world and things like that, and just to be behind the moon, that's got to be insane. So I would say be praying for them. Kind of a positive piece of news. I didn't even know NASA was really working on this until recently. Probably a lot of money, and that's another controversial part of this: is should we be spending money on doing this orbit around the moon? I think it is very cool. Nonetheless, we could have that discussion, that argument. But I like human beings for the most part. We're like pushing the boundaries of what we can know, what we can see. It is a cool part of the human spirit, I think. So hopefully, they get back safe and they have a lot of cool things to share with us when they get back. So that's the Artemis II. Very, very interesting. Let me know if you heard of it before recently, because I did not know they were working on this at all. And I don't really pay attention that much to what NASA's doing, but it didn't seem like it was very talked about. It just kind of came up very recently, and everyone's been locked in on it. Yeah. So those are the two little news pieces that I just wanted to mention that are happening right now. Not very rewatchable content because it's going to be, tomorrow will be more things coming up, but that's not our main thing. The main thing I wanted to discuss, I wanted to talk about the liturgy a little bit, but I was like, I'll save that for another time. But I did want to talk about God's will. I had someone asking me about like what's God's will for my life, and I don't really know what God's will for anyone's life is, except for maybe the obvious stuff that we can understand from the magisterium and the gospels. But what is God's will for life? That's probably one of the biggest questions that everyone has. Anyone who cares, obviously, about God and about loving Him, about serving Him. And maybe that's where I'll start. Is I think we need to change our lens a little bit, because a lot of times, and myself included, we look at God's will and we just want to know it for like our own peace and comfort, to relieve our anxieties about our life. And I think we need to kind of reframe that, not kind of, we really do need to reframe it into thinking about it as loving and serving God. It's like, what can I do to love and serve God? And that's going to be really key. And I think this changes a lot of things in terms of the big thing I want to talk about is taking versus receiving God's will. And I think this might be a product of the culture. I'll go into that really quickly. The culture that we're in, the American culture with media, movies, shows, music, is always telling us like we can be whatever we want to be. I I'm not saying all of it, but I do think that is a big topic in our media. For whatever reason, I won't get into my theories on that now. But if you do understand that that is a real message they're trying to push, it's really not an accurate message. It's like, can you do or be whatever you want to be? It's like, no, there are limitations. And you see those limitations trying to be broken by a lot of people and with very terrible results. I think an obvious, maybe callous example is transgenderism. People are like, I can be whatever I want. I can even be whatever gender I want to be. And there are certain things in this life that we do not choose. And like some people like G.K. Chesterton, I don't want to butcher it. I'm just going off the cuff here, but G.K. Chesterton talk about like some of the most adventurous things are actually the things that we cannot choose. And he talks about the family is one of the greatest adventures of life because you're just born into it. You had no choice in it. And that actually creates some of the beauty of the family. The family is not a beautiful thing because it's like secure and predictable. It's a beautiful thing because it seems very random and chaotic. But that's the place where you learn about life and you learn about different things. So yeah, pushing back against that notion of we can be whatever we want to be, we can do whatever we want to do. That is not, I don't think, compatible with the Catholic understanding of what we're supposed to do with our lives. I think we can talk to God. We can, make supplication to God about things that we desire, and but He's going to act in a way because His number one, in theory, and let me know if you disagree, but His number one priority is our eternal salvation, the salvation of our souls. It wouldn't matter if you were the greatest astronaut or the greatest military general or the greatest musician, president, etc. All these great things that we could be in this life in terms of occupation, which I think it's interesting. A lot of people, when they're talking about what they want to be, it's usually about their job or their career, which is also interesting. But God is not, His priority is not those things. His priority is He wants us to love. He wants us to be holy. He wants us to have virtue. He wants us to be good, be truthful, love the beautiful. He wants us to be saints, right? So when we're thinking about God's will, I think we can look at it in that way. Is what is God doing here? Well, God wants me to be a saint. Why did X, Y, Z happen to me? Well, if God really loves me, how is He working? Even if it was something sinful on the part of another or of yourself, you think, oh, why did this person do this thing to me? God doesn't care about me. And if we have faith, if we truly believe God loves us, then actually that thing that happened to us from another person's even sinfulness, God is going to either was already planning or is going to take that and apply it to something greater, which involves our eternal salvation. So that's number one. And so if we understand all that, we can start looking at how maybe people try to interact with God's will. And I've done this so much. And the only reason I feel like I can talk about it is there's this taking versus receiving notion I think that's going on. So when people start to become religious or they want to love God more or know God more, that they're like, I almost feel like for myself it was like a franticness, like what am I supposed to do for God? I need to do great things. And reading the saints and stuff gets you inspired, which is great. But you start to almost you're like trying to just grasp everything so you can do it your own way. Even if it's stuff that's good, like you might like join like 17 Bible studies and you want to teach everyone everything or something like that. Or you just want to be close with people that are also pursuing God. And we do it, maybe without thinking and being prayerful about it or peaceful about it. We're very manic about it and stressed about it and like, what is God's will? What is God's will? And whereas, so that would be like the taking. We're trying to almost take God's will. We're like, we're gonna do it. We're gonna grasp it. We're gonna grit our teeth, flex our hands, white knuckle it, so to speak. And then there's the other way where you're actually receiving God's will, where it's actually you understand that God's will is going to be in relation to your life currently. What do I mean by this? I mean, I don't want to say there's things like God won't call people to radical things. Joan of Arc is a great example, right? She's a farmer. She's a peasant. She lives with her family as a peasant, and God calls her to this enormous task of commanding the armies of France. And I think that is real. But let's keep in mind, though, that Joan of Arc, she prayed on this for a very long time. I can't remember. I think it was 3 years. She had voices speaking to her, and she still sat on it and prayed on it for 3 years until she made actual steps to do this. Another example I use is St. Catherine of Siena. And I want to use her more than just the brief mention I did with Joan of Arc. St. Catherine of Siena started very young, very prayerfully. And we want to do great things like St. Catherine of Siena for God. And I think that's a very healthy desire. But let's look at actually what St. Catherine of Siena did. First, she's receiving this incredible grace from God as a very young girl. And then she hits a point where she just she makes a decision to just pray in her room for 3 years. St. Catherine of Siena stayed in her room. It sounds like she only left to go to Mass in the morning. So she stays in her room, maybe 22 hours of the day, and she's just praying in there. And then God speaks to her very clearly after 3 years and says God just wants her to do normal things with her family. He wants her to go eat dinner with her family. And she does it. And as she's obedient to these little tugs, it sounds like God's really speaking to her. So little tug, big tug, whatever you want to call it. She keeps accepting these tasks, these little things. And we can think of the gospel verse where Jesus says, he who is faithful in little things will be given greater things. She has dinner with her family. She's just doing menial household chores with her family, for her family, right? Cleaning the house, making dinner, baking bread, starting fires, stuff like that. And then as it continues, then she starts to minister to the local, I don't know how you call them, Sienians, Sienese, I don't know, the people of Siena. And she's just taking care of these women that have cancerous sores and that no one else will take care of because they smell so bad. And some of them sound kind of mean. And so she just keeps accepting these, and God, I think I would argue, because she's faithful in these little things, she's accepting of God's will for her life. She doesn't immediately, try to start a YouTube channel or something like that, which roast on myself. But she just accepts the little things in her life. And as she accepts these things, God keeps giving her greater things, where eventually she's making peace between different cities. She's trying to convince the Pope to go back to Rome. She's meeting with these very powerful people. And not that's what we should desire, but it's like God knew that he could trust her with these little things. And then she was given greater. I think she's a great example for us, like how God's will, how we can think of it, how we can look at it. It's like, I really do feel this way now. Obviously, I've struggled with God's will and this taking, receiving concept, but it is just so much better when there's so much more peace when you look at your life and you're like, well, this is where I'm at in my life. I want to be faithful to prayer, fasting, sacrifice, the sacraments, loving who's around me, etc. But just trying to do things within the realm of your actual life around you, instead of making all these crazy fantasies of like, oh, I'm going to, I don't know, I'm going to crusade to the Middle East to save the Christians in Israel or Iran or whatever it is. It's like, that's a good desire, but let's not have that desire and forsake the things that are right in front of you. Are you being mean to your coworkers? Well, let's worry about that first. Do you have kids? Do you have a wife? Are you being a saint to them? Are you being a good father, a good husband? Let's focus on those things. Let's focus on what is right in front of you. And if you really want to do great things for God, you want to love and serve him. If you do those little things, I feel, not guaranteed, but he will give you greater things to do. And you, when it comes around, you might not even like it. No, I'm just kidding. Um, and that's the importance of growing in virtue, right? Is when God gives us these great tasks, which aren't maybe even as important as the little tasks, but I know they're very, very cool and likable. But if we grow in virtue, when God does give you that one or two big tasks in your life or more, you'll have the fortitude, the justice, the faith, the prudence, etc., to go about it in the correct way and to handle it even. Like we want to do great things for God, or even if not, I've been focusing on great things for God, but even if we want a little thing from God, the best thing we can do, because if we're in this receiving mind, says we can prepare for the thing, which the best way to do is virtue. Money might be an important, oh, I want a wife, and I'm on that too. So no judgment here, but I want a wife. Well, are you preparing? Not only people want to get money and success and all that stuff, and to a certain extent, I see where they're going. But are you going in virtue? Is this dream woman going to come around and she's going to be like, wow, this guy is so impatient. He's such a coward. Or is she going to be like, oh, wow, this is a virtuous man. He's been preparing himself for this vocation, this task. Um, so yeah, I just invite people into, like I've said, I've had a couple of conversations about God's will recently, and again, Gabi After Hours, put some respect on that guy's name. I do recommend watching him. I think he's got at least one. I know he has at least one video on God's will, which is great. But me specifically, I want to talk about that taking and receiving mindset. It's just so much more peace. If you want peace, and I really think it's the right way to go about God's will, I do recommend that. So hopefully that's helpful in this Easter octave. That's just my thoughts on it. I do want to hear feedback. So if you got feedback for me, please let me know. And then about those two modern things, and maybe we'll do some Just War, because Just War has been coming up so much, obviously. And I haven't really seen anyone do too much on it. I don't know how I feel about Just War specifically. I do know of it. And I know it's commonly discussed. So maybe we'll talk about it a little more. But yeah, and then the Artemis II thing is just interesting. If anyone doesn't, I do have an uncle who does not believe we went to the moon, and I do enjoy hearing his thoughts. If you have any details on it, let me know. Let me know in the comments, or however you can communicate with me. I just think it's so funny. That would be so great because it is related to faith. Um, you have creationists, different things like that. The debate within the church about geocentrism, creationism, all that good stuff, and then the idea that there could be a debate about space being fake or something like that. That would be mind blowing. That would be wild, or maybe not even that's fake, but it's not what we think it is. People talk about the firmament, and then I forgot it's like the Van something belt around the Earth that has a bunch of radiation. All that stuff is fascinating. It's related to the faith, I think, just the common understandings of scripture and our universe and how it works. I think is all related. Oh, but that's fascinating. I think I'm gonna run over a little bit. I think I will try to do some. Hopefully, one day we'll have some super chats so we can have some conversations about stuff. Because I'm not gonna like be able to answer stuff as like an authority, but I do think it would be a cool place to discuss different controversial topics. But I do like ranting at the end here, so this is kind of fun. But I know some people are like, maybe I'll like make a solid wall where it's like, well, now I'm just going to start getting ridiculous, and then the main topic is over. But anyway, I'll end it there. Hopefully you liked the video. If you did, please like, subscribe, comment. Please comment. I would love to interact. But until next time, God be with you. God bless you. And we will see you soon. Good night.